we wake, hear the birds and see the sun. Side by side our fears are done. Oh, the good times just begun. Oh, we know what we have, let's hold on tight. Found what we're looking for in life. Call us crazy, but things are finally right. With you and I, the future is bright.
Morning! New day, new project, and this is what we're going to be doing today. It's a little jumper by Simplicity. Love Simplicity. 𝐥𝐤𝐤𝐷 is having a sale next weekend. I'll buy more 𝐥𝐤𝐤𝐷s then, but for right now, Simplicity. This jumper comes in 3 options. Basically a shorter, a longer, and then a pocket variation. And this is the different pockets. And I'm going to be doing this one where it looks like the pocket is on the outside of the jumper, because I think that'll be cute. So I think the first thing to do is get the pattern cut out. Oh, I want to show you the fabric. Now, here's the thing. It calls for really lightweight cottons. So it says batiks, calico, chambray, cotton types, flannel, lightweight denim. So it wants a light woven fabric. So I have this calico. You know, it looks kind of old-timey-ish and it's dark enough that I think it'll be nice. But I'm gonna make it out of calico. Seems a little lightweight to me for a jumper, but it will be for summer and things like that, so maybe it'll work. But I'm following their instructions, see how it does, and I will be right back. So one other thing I want to show you is the finished hip measurements. So normally I would cut out a 16 because I think that's going to be fine. But I'm actually going to cut out 1 size bigger on this. And 2 reasons. One, this fabric is so lightweight, I don't want it to tear or anything if I go to sit down in it around my hips. Okay? It looks like in the pattern ease guide that they have several inches of ease in the hips, which is great, which is what I want. But just to be a little on the safe side, that's what I'm going to do. And I don't think that's going to be a problem because the back is kind of like a drawstring type thing. So it'll be adjustable there because my waist, I'm more hourglassy. So my waist here, let's see, it's like my waist is small and my hips are like gargantuan. So that way I can cinch it in at my waist with the little ties, but I don't have to worry about my hips being confined, if that makes any sense. So that's what I'm going to do, cut out 1 size larger, okay? Okay, so just like all wovens that I deal with, I pre-washed it, ran it through the dryer, pre-shrink it. I tore the edge so I can make sure my straight is lined up. Got it nice and straight. And now I'm ready to start cutting. I don't know if anyone is actually interested, but I wanted to show you something that I've used to organize my sewing table. So this is actually like one of those bath and shower metal rack things. And I put all my little things that I'm going to be using all the time. This is my like hand sewing thing. This is a little basket with all kinds of marking stuff and anything. Anyway, I have a big magnet. It's like a massive magnet that I just sewed some fabric over, and I have it safety pinned on here, so I can just throw pins up there so I don't have them down here that I have to deal with. And then I have some clothespins, and I just pin my instructions and pin my pattern envelope up there so it's out of the way. And that's just how I do it. You know, sometimes people are interested in how you organize, and this is one of my things. Now I'm doing view C, and view C calls for cutting the pocket the opposite way that you normally would. You'd normally cut it along the straight, and this has it going 90 degrees different. So here's my selvage edge. So because my fabric here actually kind of has a design, it has like a very light pinstripey type look to it, that'll be kind of obvious. So I'm curious how this is going to turn out. So I just wanted to point out, this is on purpose. The pattern calls for it to be cut this way for this view. But yeah. And there are 3 pieces that get cut out of interfacing. This is what I'm using here. It's just a Pellon featherweight. And one of them, you don't cut any fabric out of. It's just purely interfacing. And it looks like it goes around the bib. And then you have a underarm and a front waistband. So view AB and view CD have totally different sets of instructions. So I'm skipping all the way to page 4 of the instructions, and we're starting our view C here. So the first thing is this piece that I called it underarm. It's actually a pocket facing, is to apply the interfacing to these pieces and then finish off the outside edge. So I will be serging that edge. So when I'm doing interfacing, and I know I show this all the time, but you know, as you do, the first thing I do is iron my fabric with a hot steam iron, just to make sure that I have it totally flat and ready to go. And honestly, the moisture that I'm putting into it with this steam is going to help the interfacing adhere better. So once I have this ironed out, then I put on my interfacing strip. And if the fabric is a little bit out of alignment, I move my fabric to match the interfacing and not the other way around. Then you just press. Technically, you should be using a press cloth here, but honestly, I never do. And so I was fighting with the idea, should I do it just for the video because that's what you're supposed to do? I decided, nope, I'm showing you the way I sew. So here we go. So you just press straight down. You don't wiggle the iron because that could skew things. So once I have it pressed, just press straight down so all those little dots are melted. Then I come back on the right side and iron it just to make sure that on this side everything is also fused flat and there's no little bumpies. Alright, so I am putting new thread into my machine for this project, and I just wanted to give you another thing that I do. So I start with a scrap of the fabric I'm going to be using. I've got my thread in here, and I make a straight stitch across a diagonal, across the bias of the fabric. Pull it out and give it a tug. Okay, until it snaps, and it's going to snap somewhere. The side it snaps on first is the side that is too tight. If they both break at the same time, and in this case both sides broke at the same time, I'm going to do one more just to make sure. That means that it's pretty much in balance and your tension is good. Because sometimes it's hard to tell just by, my thread is squeaky, I have squeaky thread. Sometimes it's hard to tell just by looking at it. Both sides look normal, but that's just, yeah, they both are breaking at the same time and in the same place. So I'm feeling pretty good about it. My machine is set up well, but that's just one more trick of the trade. So the next thing we're going to do is deal with pocket number 16. So there's actually several steps on this little pocket, but the first thing I'm going to do is clip my notches. As usual, I clip up to, but not quite at the tip of the little triangle. And then for my circles, I get my handy dandy tool. Someone asked me where to find these. I bought mine on on eBay, but I think they have them on Amazon, Walmart.com, all the biggies. And if you look up screw leather hole punch or automatic leather hole punch, you'll find it. They come with several size tips, but I just put the biggest one on here for me. And handy dandy. They're usually around, oh, probably about $11 now. But anyway, I have the holes punched there. I'm going to draw them in, and then we're going to be sewing this piece. You know, we're going to be putting right sides together, and this piece fits on here. So I've got my pockets all both marked. I'm going to place these and stitch a 5/8 inch seam right here. Okay, so here's one of them. It's been stitched. What I'm going to do is come in and clip probably up to about a little less than 1/8 of an inch away from the stitching line. Then we're going to press the seam allowance towards the facing side, okay, and run a understitch. So I'd be putting it on my machine this way and stitching on the facing side about between 1/8 and 1/4 away from the seam line, and that's going to make that pocket edge curve under really nicely. Okay, so I have the pockets facing put on and the understitching done. You can see there's my little understitching row, and I've just decided I am not going to serge this edge. I want these pockets to be as flat as possible, and once it is folded in and stitched again down this row, I think it's going to be fine. I don't need to worry about it fraying in here, so I'm just going to leave that and go on to the next step. So at this point, what you need to do is run a line of stitching, basically like stay stitching, a nice tight stitch all around, and then we're going to come back in here in this curve and run a longer stitch, like a gathering type stitch along this row, because we're going to cinch that up and pull it in. Alright, so this is my stay stitch line, this is my little gather line, and I'm going to anchor the thread on one side here, do a little figure 8 type thing to hold it in place, and then usually the bobbin thread is easier to pull than the needle thread, so I'm going to pull the bobbin thread, which is the one that would be on the right side, and just work some gathers in here. So you can see what that's going to do is the stay stitch line that we did, we're going to be pressing it down as a fold on that stay stitch line. And by pulling in the gathering thread, it's going to work in all the fullness right here. So pull that in, go to the ironing board and press this down. And it's kind of nice having that stitch there as a guide. There is something incredibly satisfying about the sound and work of a nice steam iron when it's pressing down the seam. I don't know if anyone else notices that or feels that way, but man, when you just see it and you hear that little sound, lovely. And now I'm going to come back and top stitch this just inside and then 1/4 inch in, so I'll have 2 rows of top stitching. My 1/4 inch mark is basically the edge of my presser foot. Alright, so next I get my front piece and I'm going to go ahead and mark my dots, mark my notches. It has the line that you're going to put the pocket on. I'm not going to draw that because if I am matching up my dots and up here and up here, the pocket's naturally going to fall pretty darn close to where that line is, and drawing curves is not a fun thing right now. So now just a reminder, you need to make your dots on the right side of your fabric because that is where the pocket placing is going to be. So I'm going to pin on my pocket piece. I'm going to pin it up here, matching this red dot along the edge, inside edge of my pocket. And down here, this red dot along the inside edge of the bottom of the pocket. And from there, just letting it fall where it does naturally. So here, if you can see, remember I told you that it had me cut the pocket opposite ways? Can you even see? There's little pinstripies that go this way on the pocket here, and they go this way on the dress here. So it's a little different. It's a little quirky. I don't know if it's totally necessary. I think if I had really bold lines, like a stripe, a big bold stripe or something, it would be more dramatic, more edgy. It's kind of blending here, but that's okay. So anyhow, with my pocket here, what I'm going to be doing at the machine is stitching across the top, across the, move this up here, across this edge, and then I'm going to be running along the edge of my pocket stitches similar to these. So one just on the inside and one 1/4 inch on the inside. So I'll have a double row of stitching on this side of the pocket and up here. Okay, so I got my pocket sewed on. You can kind of see how it's a little bit of a different direction here. It's real busy, so you can probably see the stitching better here if I turn it to the wrong side, where I have the double rows of stitching stitched up here, stitched up here. Now the directions say continue as for jumper AB, steps 6 through 8. So I'm going to go grab the previous page of instructions that I had put away and get started there. I'm looking and it looks like there's a difference in the views also, that the one I'm doing is more of an A-line kind of skirt, and I think view AB is more of a straight skirt, it looks like, from the pattern piece, with a little kick vent in it. So just looking for differences. Mine does not have a vent, and A and B looks like it does have a vent. But anyway, that aside, we're going to take piece 7, which is just a single piece, and it is the front waistband, and it wants you to clip your notches and press under this top, the unnotched part, press that under 5/8 of an inch. So with that done, you got your front piece here, and you're going to match up the notches and pin this, and then sew a seam straight across here and stitch it on. Before I go any further, I'm supposed to trim this seam allowance of this part that I pressed under. They want me to trim it to 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to go ahead and do that before I forget. Okay, so we're going to get started on the bib pieces now. And there's a lot of things to mark on here, but first, before I mark it, I'm going to use one of the pieces I'm going to set aside. That's going to be the facing. The other one, I'm going to apply my piece number 14 interfacing onto this first. Once the interfacing is on and I know nothing will be shifting, then I'm going to come back and mark my notches and mark my circles. So you've already seen how I put on interfacing, but it's basically just going to go on here like that. Now I want to show you when I put this interfacing on, as happens sometimes, because before I put it on I iron this piece a lot. And it flattens it out more than when it's just laying on the table and I'm cutting it. I'll end up with a little bit pooching out from the side of the interfacing. So I'm just going to trim that. It's not much. It's like 1/8 of an inch, but that way I have a nice crisp edge at the edge of my interfacing here. That's going to match up with my pattern piece really well, and so I can transfer all of my markings based on this. Actually, there are no markings except for one little circle, and I'm assuming that circle is going to be having to do with the strap placement. So I'm going to mark that on the outside. Oops, there's 2 little circles, excuse me. So I'm going to be marking these on the right side of the fabric so that I will be able to see them when I'm putting the strap on. Okay, so we got that done, and now putting it, so here's our band, and with the little folded up edge here that we've trimmed. I'm going to put this bib piece up here and stitch across, kind of like over where the previous stitching was. Technically, this stitching was kind of like a basting stitch. This is going to go right over it and stitch that at 5/8 also. So I've got it sewn on, and the next instruction says trim seam. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim it, the piece that's the very front one that has all of this pocket bulk, I'm going to trim that down to about 1/4 inch. And the middle one, I'm going to trim up just a little further. So I'm kind of grading it so I don't have one big bulk. And then the very back one that's attached to the bib itself, I'm going to leave as is. So that way I have 3 steps and not one big flat bulky seam underneath there. So my first one is this one with all of the pocket bulk on it, because I figure that's going to be the worst culprit of causing bulk. So I'm not going to do it all on camera, but so here's my top seam. I take off the next layer because I've got 3 layers here, folding everything back. So my next layer, I'm just going to be slightly above it, like halfway between this and the edge is what I'm going to cut. So then when I come back, I'll have 3 layers. Okay, that done. And what I'm going to do now is press all of this stuff up towards the bib, and then on this side, on the right side, I can press it all from here. So all this stuff down underneath is pressed up. Then this folds up, and it looks like we're supposed to be running some top stitching along the very top edge of this to hold it in place. So, fun fact, I had bumped the adjustment on my machine and it was at a zigzag. So I top stitched it with a slight zigzag to it. But you know what? It's kind of cute. I'm going to leave it. So now we go back to page 4 of the instructions, and I'm going to be working with this facing piece and piece number 11 that we have interfacing on. And the first thing to do is put the interfacing on piece 11. So I've got the back band with the interfacing on it, and the side that's notched I have up on top, and sewed the side seams together with that other piece of bib that we haven't used yet. So now I'm going to come back and press these side seams open. Come on, press them open, and also turn under the edge all the way around. And it says press it under 5/8 of an inch and then come back and trim it so that it's down to like a 3/8 inch after you trim. Okay, so I have it pressed up, and I'm going to come back around and trim off about 1/8 of an inch from this folded up edge part all the way around. I just realized for the other view, for view AB, you have to put in an invisible zipper. For the view I'm doing, which is view C, you do not. So that's another thing to think about when you're deciding which view. And it gets kind of confusing because I just flipped the paper over and all of a sudden I'm on how to sew in a zipper. And I was like, well, I didn't leave a side open for a zipper. So after that initial moment of panic, I realized, okay, 2 different views, 2 different things. One has a zipper, one does not. CD does not. So that's what I'm done. So backing up, I need to come back here to step number 7 and sew the back of the skirt onto the front of the skirt. So let me go grab that. Okay, so I have the skirt back piece here and clipping my notches. There are a lot of dots to transfer over. So I'm going to go ahead and mark those dots on the right side of my fabric because those indicate the placement for the carriers for like the belt loops. And so I need to be able to see those on the outside. Okay, so I have the dots marked on this side. Can you see them? Yeah, neither can I. So what I'm going to do is draw a line between them and connect them since this pin is going to disappear anyway. And I can see that line a whole lot better than looking for those 2 tiny dots. So just letting you know, that's what I'm doing here. Okay, so construction wise, the next thing we're going to be doing is sewing down the side seams of the front piece to the back piece. Before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and serge down the sides across the bottom and back up the side of both the front and the back. I'm not going to worry about serging across the top because that's going to be encased with the next step. So just down the sides and across the bottom and a 5/8 inch seam down the sides. Okay, so I've got my side seams sewn. I got the serging done. I've got them pressed open. And I want to mention one thing. Because this pattern is calling for doing it in a lighter fabric, and calico was an option, and this is calico. At this point, what I would tell you is to take it over and look at it through a window, just to see if you're comfortable with the amount of opacity that you have, so that, you know, if you're good with people being able to see the outline of your legs through your skirts and everything, and a lot of people are, and more power to you, then you're fine. If you're thin calico or whatever it is, we'll do that. I'm not that comfortable. My legs aren't as cute as they used to be. But thankfully, I held this up to the light, and because it is a darker calico with a very, very busy print, I don't think it's going to be a problem. If I got to this point and it was a problem, what I would do is get out my skirt front and back pieces and make a lining. It's too late to flatline this, but I would just make a lining, place it over this, and before I go any further, have that on, so that then when I do this part, I can fold it over and stitch the lining in there, and it'll be nice and neat. And so the lining seam would be encased in there. And I know this is probably confusing if you're not really fluent in sewing ease, but just wanted to give you a heads up that that is a step that I would take just to make sure that you'll be able to wear your finished garment comfortably. So then, with all that being said, we are back here at step number 9 on page 4. And just be aware, these directions flip-flop everywhere. It's like you do this part, but if you're doing this view, you flip to this page, and then you do that, and then you flip back here, and then you flip up. So just pay attention to the little continue here, continue there notice. But anyway, this is where we are, which is we have our bib facing that's sewn onto this back band, and just going to put it, actually I have this wrong, I'm going to put it right sides together with the one that's on the actual dress and sew along the top. So what the pattern calls for is to sew, pivot at these points, come down, pivot and everything. I'm going to do it slightly different because me, and I want to show you what it is. So what I'm going to do is just sew the very top seam of the bib. Then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to grade this seam. So I'm going to cut down to about 1/8 of an inch from here. This very top piece, it's going to be the most visible, And I really want it to have nice sharp corners. I'm gonna move this up some here. I want it to lay smoothly, so anyhow, I've got that graded down. Now I'm going to flip this up like this, and I'm going to understitch this top piece, just this top piece first. Okay, so now this is the very top of my bib. That's my seam line. That's my understitching. And I've come back and I've cut right where I've trimmed. See, cut right where I trimmed and pressing this down too, okay? So now if I was to fold that, all of a sudden my understitching is perfect. I don't have to worry about anything. But the next step is to go ahead, fold this down, pin it all the way around down here. Okay, so we're going to basically do the rest of the seams now. Okay, I wanted to show something else. So I'm pinning my facing bib onto my real bib, my front bib, and the front one is the one that has the interfacing on it. Well, I've been messing with this so much, and this is cut on a bias. If I was to do this again, I would put stay tape or stay stitch this slanty part of this bib, okay, because it did get a little stretched out of shape. That's not really a problem when I sew it. I'm going to sew this so that I ease this extra fullness back in, but just so that you don't have to deal with that in the first place, add a little stay tape like I like, or add stay stitching, and it'll keep it nice so that everything's going to match up well. Okay, so I'm starting up here in the bib, and I'm sewing so that my interfaced side of the bib is up. This is how I'm going to ease that in, making sure that both edges are even. And there's not a lot of fullness I need to ease in, but even if there's more, this will work. You're going to put the side that's smaller on top and just put a little extra tension here so that the feed dogs underneath will pull any extra fullness in. You're just easing it in that way. So here, again, I make sure that my bottom fabric is out enough. A little extra pressure from up here. And the feed dogs are going to ease in any fullness that I need right here. Okay, so now here's my top. Here's the top of my bib. And this is underneath here. What I'm going to do is trim off my corner to like within 1/8 of an inch there. Then I'm going to come back and trim the top piece, the one with the interfacing it on. I'm going to grade that down to about 1/4 inch all the way up. Basically, I'm trying to make it so that this top corner is going to be a really nice corner without too much bulk right there, okay? So this is what it looks like before I turn it. I have this edge graded down, the back one's still full. This edge, it had been graded, it had been understitched. So I'm just gonna do this corner real quick here. Okay, so I'm just turning out this corner so you can see my edge is on, my seam is on top. Okay, so up here, and the other thing I'm trying to do is make it so that you don't have a big bulk, so that at 5/8 inch in, you don't have a big chunk, a big step down. So with all of these things graded, especially this top already understitched, it's really easy just to fold it over, and this corner is nice and flat but very secure. It does ask you to come back and understitch, so that's good. So what you'll do is put it on your machine as far up as you can go, and to me it'll probably be up, you know, close to a couple inches to my corner. So you don't have to worry about the top, you're just going to be understitching all the way down and around. So with that done, interesting instructions next. what it wants you to do is hand baste this back band down. And at the same time, I'm just putting this pin here just to hold my side seams together. At the same time, it wants you to pin the front from the outside. So I'm just pinning these here right now. And so here's my outside, okay? So I have to bring this down so it says so it just passes my stitches. So I'm going to bring it so it just This is difficult to pin from the outside, just saying. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pin it from the inside, then take those pins, then flip it over, repin it on the right side, and then take the inside ones out, because this going back and forth is going to be crazy. I think their point is that we're trying to get it ready to top stitch in such a way that everything catches. Okay, so I have them all pinned on the wrong side, so I know it's secure. Now I'm going to come back on the right side and repin. Just periodically, and then I'm going to go back and pull the pins that I have on the back out, because it wants me to have my pin heads on this side. Now, what I have to do is get a needle and thread, because they're specific. It has to be hand basting. So I'm going to hand baste this down across the back. So they want you to baste this so that you'll be able to pull it out again rather soon. So I am just making really big, like 1/2 inch length basting stitches, because I think it only has to hold for like 1 row of stitching. So I have this basted down. I have this pinned on the right side. Now what it wants you to do is on the right side come in and stitch like a top stitch right along here. You're going to see your basting stitches, so that's going to give you a guide that you need to be right around there when you're doing your top stitch across the back. So you're just going to make one big loop and then come back and pull out your basting stitches and then make another loop 1/4 inch in, so that the top stitches will match this pattern that you have on your pockets. Alright, so this is my back band, and I need to come back in and pull out all of my basting stitches, but I wanted to show you on the front. These are my marks. Remember, I made those lines for my belt loops, and the bottom line of my belt loops is pretty much right on top of my top line of stitching. Not sure if that's how it's supposed to be, but just wanted to show you that's how it worked out on mine. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out these basting stitches. Oh, this is the front up here by the bib. So you can see here's my double row of stitching here. There's my slightly zigzaggy one that I made earlier, you know. So directions are a little wonky. Just wanted to show you, like here, that's the step we just did. And it shows the ties already on here. And this is step 10, but technically we don't actually make the ties until step 14. So, and like I said, these kind of jump all over the place, so don't get totally freaked out. I'm sure we'll figure out a way to make it work. Alright, so I think I can see where this issue is we did the pockets on the skirt. This is where we sewed the front to the back of the skirt. And then after step 7, it says to go to view AB steps 14 through 16, which is over here, which is the one that says put together your strap. And then you're supposed to come back here, and after step 14 through 16, you come back to step 8. It's very confusing, but anyway, we can make this work. Instead of opening up my bib and putting it in there, I am just going to secure it to the back of the bib. I think it'll be fine. These two big long pieces are sewn together and they make one really, really long tie. And I haven't looked ahead, but I'm really hoping they're not wanting me to turn this as one long piece, because I think I would cry. So it looks like that's the case. They do want you to do it. So the end piece of each of these has a notch. So what we're going to do is match up the tie notch with the shoulder strap notch. And it says to sew this across the top here. And then we're going to come back and fold these monsters in half and make a long casing, but leaving a gap in the middle. And the gap, oh, where's that picture? Here it is. The piece that's longer, the piece number 9, is longer and skinnier. So just on that side, you're going to sew over where they're joined, and you're going to leave the gap there. So at least that's a small blessing. I have a few different kinds of loop turners, and the one that I'm going to try to do this long skinny monster with is this one. I honestly don't even remember the name of it. I got it in the 80s, and I'm sure someone is still making something like it, but basically it's a long pipe with a handle on it, and you push it through and get everything bunched up on here. And then this little spring with a really, really sharp point at the end goes through, and you get to the end and you twist it, and that little sharp point is going to work through like a little needle, and then the little curly Q part will stay out. And then slowly you can kind of work the whole thing into the tube. So once it gets started, you can just kind of pull it. So you can see, and the whole thing just kind of makes its way through. And once you have just the fabric out here, then you can pull it. So now I need to pull my little twisty off this side, pull the tube back out, and do the whole thing again on the other side, because it has this opening halfway so that you'll have an easier time flipping it. Now I'm just going to use a little straight pin and try to pull out the corners of this really long tie. So the two pieces, there's a fatter one that is the shoulder strap, and there's the skinnier, longer part, and that's the part that's going to go through the carrier, the belt loops in the back of the dress. So I'm going to do the other side of this the same, except because I'm attaching my straps after the fact, I left the ends open down here. So my whole thing's just going to pooch through. So instead of that, I'm going to bend it over the top so that my little spring can, if I can hold it right, so that my little spring can just go through a little piece of that, here, go through a little piece of that fabric at the end. Okay, so now that I have my straps done, how I'm going to attach them is I'm going to line up, this is the inside here, okay? I'm going to line up at the edge where the strap should be, my raw edge just below the top of the bib. Just there. Cut this little thread off because that's going to annoy me. Okay. Kind of level where my understitching is. Then I'm going to, so let's say I'm going to put my pin here. It's at about 3/8 down. I'm going to flip it up. And I'm going to pin my strap on here this way. So what this is going to do is hide the raw edge of my little strap, and it's going to give me a nice secure place to stitch. What I'm going to be doing is on the outside, I guess I should put my pins on the outside, that would be good. I'm going to be running a double row of top stitching across the top, just like is everywhere else on this dress, that same double row of top stitching. So I think, it'll be camouflaged pretty well. and look like it's just intentional. Okay, so the last piece we're dealing with is piece number 12, the carrier. So we're going to be flipping this one too. So we're going to fold it in half. Okay, and we're going to sew it down the edge. It says use 3/8 of an inch down here. Then we're going to flip it right side out. This time I'm just going to use a basic wire loop turner with the little latch hook at the end. You have to get your little latch hook caught and just start pulling. It's a weird thing, you have to keep enough pressure on these things that they won't let go, but not so much that you're going to pull it off. But anyhow, so I'm going to go ahead and press this flat, and then we're going to cut it into 3-inch long pieces. And at the end of each piece, it wants you to finish off the edge. So if you can see right here, it says cut the carriers, press under 3/8 inch. And it wants you to zigzag the end of the carriers. Just perfect. They don't give you any fudge room on this. So sometimes carriers do, and you get an extra piece. Not on this. You have exactly what you need. So I'm going to go ahead and run my zigzags. Okay, so I'm setting my machine for my widest zigzag. And I am going to just keep on going. So here's the thing. You don't actually have to stop. You can just keep feeding them in. I'm sure everyone knows that, but sometimes it's just nice to be reminded. All right, let's see if you can see this. Here's my lines for my carriers. And like I said, my bottom line for my bottom carrier is pretty much right at the top line of my top stitching. So what I did is I pressed under one of the edges, all right? And I'm going to put that one on the bottom, and I'm going to put it just above my top stitching. So I'll have like maybe a 1/16 of an inch above my top stitching, just a little bit. And what I'm trying to do is make it so it looks uniform, using their lines as a guide, but more than that, just using my own. So then I'm going to turn over my top part of my carrier and match that up. Now, the top of the line here looks like it's about 5/8, is it? Yeah, more or less. It's about 5/8. So just to keep everything uniform, what I'm going to do, let's push this down here, is line up my little guide and make the top of my carrier at 5/8. Okay? And I think by doing that, it's going to make it look uniform coming across the back. Okay, so I got all of my belt loops on back here, and so it looks like we're going to feed them crosswise. So like I'll take this corner up here, bring it across the back, and I'm going to feed it through this way. And then this strap, cross it this way and feed it through the opposite way. And it looks like in some ways they have it where they wrap it around and tie it in the front. Looks like she has it tied in the back. I'll probably tie it in the front. So I'm going to do my usual, throw on some fun flexi lace at the bottom. And actually, I held it up, and I think I'm going to put fairly wide hem on this because it seemed a little bit long to me. So I'm probably 4 inches seems a lot. I'm going to put about a 3-inch hem on this plus the lace. And I know I've shown it several times, but just in case, what you do is I sew the stretch lace on. See, it's got a little stretch, and this does have a slight curve to it. So when I sew this on, I am going to stretch it slightly. And I'm going to sew a straight stitch right along. So sew a straight stitch in one of these little tracks, and then press it, and then I'll come back and I will sew another straight stitch in the other track, whatever, other rail, to put it on here, and then it will be done.
When we wake, hear the birds and see the sun. Side by side our fears are done. All the good times just begun. We know what we have, let's hold on tight. Found what we're looking for in life. Call us crazy, but things are finally right.
As you do. But anyway, I think that this is actually a really neat pattern. It's comfortable. I like the way that it's fitting. Now, I did make it one size larger than I would normally do, just because I wanted to make sure I had enough ease in my hips and everything, because this is a fairly straight skirt pattern, and I think that that was a good call. The only thing that I might do differently next time, and I will probably make it again, is when I get to that point where it's a judgment if you're going to line it or not, I will probably line it. And that's just because the fabrics that they want you to use are lighter, which is comfy, but there's more of a chance for the whole panty line, see-through everything to go on. And just me, I feel more comfortable knowing that I don't have to worry about those things. So I'll probably line the skirt, you know, and the lining, you don't have to worry about this whole top piece. It's just the skirt pieces. And I might do a video with the lining. I haven't done that yet either. So, but if you, and I did view C, and view C and view D are similar, and view A and B go together totally different, and they have an invisible zipper, which this does not. This just pulls straight over with no zipper. So that's, you know, a bonus. But I think I'm happy with the view that I made. I think I'll make a pattern with an invisible zipper at some point, just so I can have that on the video. But I would make it again. I would. And the only thing is, pay attention to the directions so you don't do like I did, because you read one thing and then it says go here and then step here and then go here and then go here, and it gets a little bit distracted. We made it work. I sewed the straps on anyway, and it's a comfy little jumper. I like it. So yay, thumbs up to this one, and I'll see you next time.
We know what we have, let's hold on tight. Found what we're looking for in life.